Session is talking about a post-COVID assurance on Zimbabwe as a safe tourism destination. I will introduce to you the moderator. Her name is Tess Pross. She is the founder of Crystal Events Africa, a Cape Town-based DMC, but operating in many African countries. She is also the president of the Society for Incentive Travel Excellence, and this is the Africa chapter. It is the only association dedicated to motivational travel. In addition, she is the chair for the New South Africa Events Council, which is a coalition of 13 industry associations collaborating and lobbying for the industry to open as soon as possible. Tess, it's over to you. Have a good session.
Thank you so much, Hazel, for that lovely introduction. I'm very happy to have a fantastic panel here with us, and let me jump right in and introduce them. We have in the audience from the Ministry of Health and Childcare, Mr. Victor Nyamandi. We have from the Ministry of Environment, Climate, Tourism and Hospitality Industry, Mrs. Rudo Faranisi. We have online with us Mr. Innocent Manyera, from the Tourism Business Council of Zimbabwe, the Vice President, and then from the Zimbabwe Tourism Authority, we have Mr. Nehemia Chikutsa. Welcome to all our panelists, and we look forward to a robust discussion this afternoon. So,
thank you.
If I may start with our Ministry of Health, Mr. Nyamandi. We are going through very interesting times, and we are heading into our festive season. What does the landscape look like? What updates do you have for us on entry requirements for visitors going into Zimbabwe?
Thank you very much. Yeah, this COVID-19 has been, it's a new disease. People are confused. And it's a pandemic that is affecting more than one country. It has spread throughout the world. But we are saying things should move. You can't stop the country. And as a country, we have said tourism should continue. And we have put in place some requirements. We are saying all visitors that come into the country or leave the country should have PCR certificates, or let me just simply put it as COVID-19 PCR results. And this should be negative. So a traveler who presents this at the point of entry is allowed into the country. But our laws say that if you do not present any PCR certificate, we deny you entry. I'm the head for Port Health in the Ministry of Health and Childcare, and we have got officers at all points of entry, airports and border posts, so we ensure that that requirement is adhered to. If your PCR certificate is positive, the law said we deny you entry into the country. You also realize that once a traveler is allowed into the country, because placing on the negative, a PCR certificate, we don't subject them to quarantine, either institutional or mandatory. We say proceed with your day-to-day work, with your day-to-day business. You know that tourists want to spend money, so we don't hold them. They proceed. But we put a clause and say, if you have got any challenges or you experience any challenges, they should report to the nearest health facility. There are also questions. I'll try to integrate the issue of children so that I finish with this issue of PCR requirements. Children below 5 years. Internationally, countries have said children 5 years and below do not need a PCR certificate. And we have joined with the international community so that we make traveling for under 5s uniform. It becomes a uniform requirement. So when a traveler comes into the country and they want to go back, we are saying the same thing, that they should also present with a PCR certificate. But this PCR certificate should be negative. And we are also saying that they should get the PCR certificate from registered laboratory so that we remove the aspect of fake certificates. You also realize that what we require, if it is also laboratories from other countries that might not have been registered, the certificate should have a barcode so that our port health officers can verify or authenticate that it's a genuine certificate. But you also realize that as a country we have joined the EU and we have introduced the trusted travel, and this program is meant to ensure that laboratories that are authentic are being used. And as soon as one is tested, that information is entered into the platform. And as people travel, that can be verified at points of entry. So we are also saying that all travelers are advised to observe COVID-19 regulations during their period of stay in the country so that we reduce the spread of the diseases. And for people coming in, we have got what we call a traveler surveillance form, where personal details and health details of visitors or travelers are entered into. And we encourage that it's done online or in liaison with the airline so that once the travelers arrive, there are no delays. They just give this form to port health authorities. You also realize that as a requirement, we have health institutions in or near tourist areas that will help travelers in the event that they face health challenges. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Nyamandi, for those detailed points that you made there. Mr. Manyara, may I jump to you? Let's look at the private sector. What is being done within our accommodation, our activities, our attractions to ensure tourist and visitor safety?
Thank you so much, Tess and colleagues from the private sector in the tourism and hospitality industry in Zimbabwe. We are saying we are the first, or we were the first to embrace COVID shocks in terms of our business. You know, our business is very fragile. So the first port of call was to make sure that we engage Ministry of Health as a sector to make sure that they unpack what exactly is the COVID-19 to Zimbabwe and the whole world. You know, it was a surprise. The pandemic actually get to us as a shock, and no one was prepared for it. So what we did was actually to engage the Ministry of Health and Child Care. That's why you see Mr. Nyamandi is not a new face to me and my colleagues, because we were the first to engage him, because we're actually seeing a disaster and our industry is quite prone to such pandemics. So what we did was to make sure that the Ministry of Health unpack what is COVID-19 to us. And if you check even through Zimbabwe Tourism Authority, tourism and hospitality was actually the first one to embrace issues to do with COVID-19, the PPEs, the issues to do with the testings, the issues to do with even the WHO protocols that came aboard. Even if you check when we wanted to open after the first lockdown was introduced in 2020, we were the first to make sure that we create awareness to the general populace of Zimbabwe and the whole world in terms of them making sure that they are safe as they visit our destinations. Our business, like I said earlier on, is quite prone to issues to do with the pandemics like COVID-19 and very sensitive. And to some extent, at the end tail in terms of priority at any economy, even outside Zimbabwe, where people they will travel maybe for leisure, for mice business, etc., both domestic and international travelers. So what would end was the issue to do with a banning of travel by countries that first experienced COVID-19 in 2019. We just felt that especially destinations like Victoria Falls and Harare, where quite a chunk is actually of their business is actually from international travelers. So we caught the sneeze, and what we did was to engage Ministry of Health, like I said earlier on, to make sure that we comply and make Zimbabwe a safe destination. Our concerns, amongst other stakeholders on making sure that we are safe COVID-19 wise. It was to do with the saving life for the future. We all know that, yes, there is business that we lost and we were the most affected, but as a stakeholder in countries, Zimbabwe and the whole world, tourism and hospitality had to make sure that they also had to start the issue to do with the safety from COVID for the saving life for the future. Also, government and other stakeholders, they were interested in making sure that COVID-19 is actually under control, because tourism is actually one of the biggest foreign currency earner. So there was no option but for us operators to make sure that we also comply and try to support government initiatives to make sure that we put control the spread of COVID-19. To save also employment, as you know, that tourism and hospitality is actually labor intensive. So the only thing that was supposed to happen was to make sure that we put to rest the further spread of COVID-19 to save employment and further create employment from other investments that would come aboard. More to say, the biggest thing that we wanted to do as a country, Zimbabwe, you know, Zimbabwe Tourism Authority, they are there to manage a brand Zimbabwe. So us as operators that are regulated under Zimbabwe Tourism Authority was to make sure that we keep Zimbabwe a brand of repute from such further spread of COVID-19. So what we did was to make sure that we create a safe customer, because life matters at the end of the day. We might get business today, but what if there is no life tomorrow? We might lose at a bigger chunk. So as the tourism and hospitality, we are saying, whose job is it to make sure that we are safe from the further spread of COVID-19? We are saying it's everybody's job. Let's be a brother's keeper or a sister's keeper to make sure that we see tomorrow and prosper tomorrow. Those who have been visiting our facilities in different regions of Zimbabwe, especially in Victoria Falls, we are saying as industry, we have put in place the following, encouraging our members, operators to make sure that all their employees, they are vaccinated. And if you recall very well, Zimbabwe have been loud in Victoria Falls, as we call it, our tourism capital city of Zimbabwe, to make sure that we reach herd immunity. And I'm sure we have done that. And without doubt, we are still encouraging other regions of operations in terms of tourism hospitality that we reach herd immunity, so that we give confidence to our guests and visitors that will be coming to Zimbabwe. If you go around, you would see most of our hotels, they are now going issues to do with the e-restaurant, where you can just order while you are in your room, not talking to the waiter or waitress. You just scan your QR code, then you know that I've placed my order from a main choice that have been given. These are technologies that we are trying to embrace to make sure that we reduce contact. Even in terms of cleaning of our rooms, we are making sure that there is no contact with the guest. And other hotels, they've also introduced encouragement to do with their staff members to be vaccinated by making sure that they have got, over and above the vaccination card, they have introduced vaccination badges, and also some awards that were given to the first 10 or 15 people amongst the 100 plus employees within an organization to get the first and the second jab, so that we encourage our employees to be safe first before they want to save the whole world. Also, if you look at it, Tess and colleagues, we also have quite an arrangement as tourism and hospitality, where some of the hotels in Harare and Victoria Falls, they were actually COVID vaccination centers for our employees first, before we go to the world. So it was quite an encouragement to say, let's start by ourselves and make sure that the rest will also follow and have confidence in the brand tourism and hospitality of Zimbabwe. Also further, if you look at it, we donated some of our room nights and some of the hotels to make sure that the COVID centers during the peak of COVID in 2020, which means we wanted to save life and further reduce the spread of COVID-19. Suffice to say, the basics of making sure that the population is safe from COVID-19 issues to do with the temperature checks. They're also done at our hotels, masking up for you to access the facilities. Medical team, they're always on call to make sure that if there is an emergent or a suspected COVID-19 case, they will always come and attend. We introduced, like I said earlier, on issues to do with the e-ordering, delivery, issues to do with the social distance in meeting rooms, restaurants, and bars, and also comply to the maximum number that is recommended by Ministry of Health and Child Care to do with the gatherings over and above what Mr. Nyamand spoke about, is to do with the valid COVID-19 negative certificate. And we always work with our own local law enforcement in our own province or district of operation to make sure that we are safe and we've got confidence in support of what is happening throughout the country. Key pillars onwards, that is the post-COVID. We are saying we are actually envisaging as an industry, reaching herd immunity as a nation, fight to the end COVID-19 by the world populace, full authorization of the government facilities that we have, like the tourism support facility, because as we all know that there is lost time, lost business due to COVID-19. So we are saying we are working hand in glove with our own government to make sure that we embrace the policy that will come on board, including the tourism revolving fund, the issues to do with support of authorization of tourism industry and its value chain in terms of the national tourism recovery and growth strategy. Also, we are forging and making encouragements to co-operators and probable or prominent operators to forge investments in tourism development zones in Zimbabwe, as COVID-19 is going to be a thing of the past. We all agree that numbers in terms of cases have since declined, and we are saying that's the direction that we would want to take. And also, we would want to see maybe extension of statutory instruments that are in place already to do with the capital goods, as well as the safari vehicle duty exemptions. Already we've got confidence in the market through MICE business that have started in the last quarter of 2021. And the leisure business, I was checking with colleagues around the country, there's quite a number of promising bookings over the festive season in 2021. And we hope that it will continue in that positive trajectory, which means there is confidence already in the brand Zimbabwe in terms of tourism and hospitality business. Tertiary institutions, they're also coming up with taking it as an opportunity to embrace heritage education 5.0 in shaping the future through technology that is leading to innovation and industrialization. I've seen tertiary institutions taking about issues to do with the manufacturing of sanitizers, disinfectants, issues to do with the sanitizer automatic dispensers done by tertiary institutions, which means we are actually seeing it as an opportunity, though it's a pandemic, but it's an opportunity to make sure that we self-sustain within our own country, and also the whole world will benefit from that. Well, forward, I would say. Yes,
yeah,
yes.
thank you. That's really fantastic feedback. I am hearing innovation, I'm hearing collaboration, and I'm hearing thinking out of the box, which is really fantastic. And you've also answered all the questions I was going to ask you. So I'm going to come back to you for some more in a minute. Mr. Chikutsa, please speak to us from the Zimbabwe Tourism Authority. Mr. Manyara has just shared with us that you've got a very promising festive season ahead. What is the Tourism Authority doing? What have you got in place to ensure that heading into this busy season, that all our suppliers are making sure that protocols are adhered to and not, taking what you call it, becoming relaxed and, losing the eye off the ball? How are we going to ensure that people remain vigilant?
Okay, thank you very much, Tess and colleagues. Just before I answer your question, what I want to just tell you, one thing which we should be maybe have knowledge of is when a client or a customer is coming to a destination, what they expect, there's one, they need the safety, they need the clean environment, and also they need the clean rooms and restaurants, and also they will need the improved fumigation processes in their places of stay. And also they will need also improved cleaning processes. We are now in COVID. So these are some of the things which we also expect when in our operators that they should also at least abide with. And on top of that, when we said it's Christmas time, we are now moving to Christmas time. And what are we doing as ZTA? In last year, when this pandemic started, 2020, what we did is we started with the provision of the guidance, the guidelines protocols for COVID-19. And these guidelines help the industry to follow what is supposed to be done during this COVID time. And the guidelines were developed and then approved by our ministry. And then the ministry, now the industry is now using the guidelines. So what we are going to do, us as ZTA, as the authority, we now, to make sure that at least clients are safe during this festive season, we move around. We are doing random checks whereby we move all the operators, the DTFs, these are the tourist facilities, checking whether they are following all the protocols. So, and on top of that, as Zimbabwe Tourism Authority, what we are doing is we are doing the training in conjunction with the Ministry of Health, whereby we also train some of the operators throughout the country so that at least everyone is aware that this, although we are saying this pandemic will be the thing of the past, but as for now, it's still there. So everyone should be conscientized so that at least we move in the same direction. And what we want to assure our guests or clients who are coming into our destination Zimbabwe is to make sure that at least our destination Zimbabwe is safe. So all these things we'll be doing through the training, and the training is also done in collaboration with other stakeholders. It's not only ZTA, but with other stakeholders within the region, within the country, so that at least we can help our operators and all the stakeholders within the tourism industry.
That is amazing. I think the fact that you are making a concerted effort in training the industry, creating that awareness will really go a long way. Thank you so much for that. Mrs. Faranisi, may we come to you? So you've had your hands full, negotiating through this crazy time. Now, looking at Zimbabwe as almost the center of the Gaza region, which involves several countries, and of course also South Africa as a big feeder market. What attempts have been made to align protocols to make it easier and more attractive for visitors to come through, especially if you look at generally pre-COVID, how easy it was to visit 4 countries in one day? How are we going about that?
Thank you very much, Tess. You really have pointed out at something that is very critical to the tourism sector. Yes, things were quite normal before the COVID era. Now that we are in there, everyone is affected. That's the thing about COVID. And you cannot work in isolation. We have all adopted the code that came through the joint statement that was made by the World Health Organization and the UNWTO on the tourism side. So literally, the regional countries also adopted the same, just like us, because we all subscribe to the UNWTO. So what we then did was to reach out to each other. We've got various platforms. You mentioned the CASA platform, for instance. We also have the bilaterals, and we have the overall regional. If you look at SADC, for instance, it's a region on its own. Yes, we used to do well with our Univisa, for instance, the one between us and Zambia. And also we had our cooperation with the other countries in the region. But in terms of travel, generally, you probably are aware that Zimbabwe is the only country that is liberalized on the visa to SADC member states. Anyone from the SADC region does not need a visa to come to Zimbabwe. So that's a plus for us. You should give us a pat on the back, Tess. Then we move on to the bilaterals. South Africa is our major tourist source within the region. And we have been cooperating with them. We have reached out to each other. We met through our joint tourism technical committee. We also have other platforms like the Bi-National Commission. It hasn't met yet, but I'm just mentioning it as one of the platforms. We also have these permanent commissions that are taking place. We had one with Namibia, the Joint Permanent Commission, and we subsequently had this specific one for tourism, the Joint Tourism Technical Committee. earlier. I think that was in July. And then in August, we had one with South Africa. And of course, we were using the technology, the virtual platforms. What we do in those fora, we review our cooperation in various areas, and we look at issues that are common to both of us, that affect us, and we try to help one another how to improve or how to move out of a difficult situation. That's what cooperation is all about. So that bit we have done, and we continue to do with other countries. I think this is what is helping us to reach out to one another. You mentioned CASA. We did that with Namibia. And we also did that with all the CASA countries during the ministerial meeting that was held in June earlier. We touched on a number of issues. So that particular aspect was addressed as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Faranisi. That is very good news. And again, the collaboration between countries, governments, policymakers are absolutely critical at this stage in order to help tourism get back to where it should be. I think, Mr. Manyera, let me bring this question to you before we look at some Q&As from the audience. In terms of skills, we all know and realize that tourism has been the hardest hit of all business sectors. So many companies have sadly closed, people have lost their jobs, but we've also lost an incredible amount of talent and skills from the industry. Now that we are going into a busier period, what measures do you have in place, or do you plan to have in place, to make sure that we've got a tourism workforce that are up for the challenge, that, you know, in terms of skills development and retraining and reinforcing? Do you have any thoughts on that?
Okay. Thank you so much, Tess. I think if you recall from Mrs. Chikudza's presentation, we are working hand in glove to make sure that ZTA, they also do retrainings and supported with other tertiary institutions that have got tourism and hospitality programs. What we are doing, it's actually a busier period where we are saying everyone should actually brave up for making sure that we are prepared for the visitors that are going to come post-COVID. We are not going to tire. Yes, besides losing jobs, besides some employees ended up being redundant, those who were still at work, there was no activity. They're also rushed in terms of their trade. So what we are going to do is to make sure that we continue working in partnership and exchange programs with operators in the industry, as well as our own Zimbabwe Tourism Authorities training unit, vis-a-vis tertiary institutions that also have got programs to do with the tourism and hospitality. So it's a big task, like I said earlier on. We are actually making sure that there is innovation towards survival of the business. And we need to make sure that we make the visitor very much happy and not see any difference from periods prior to COVID-19. It's no longer business as usual in Zimbabwe. We are going to work tirelessly, both government and operators, as well as business associations, to make sure that we stand again on our feet.
That is brilliant news, and I absolutely applaud Zimbabwe for being so proactive in the training sense. In fact, it's not a unique situation. Globally, we see that there's been such a drain of skills, you know, from just answering new requests and operations on the ground. So I really think there's a few countries and destinations that can take lessons from Zimbabwe in this regard. Mr. Chikudza, let's hop back to you. In terms of border openings and incoming guests, what is on the horizon? If you can look into your crystal ball, do you see increase in flights? Are all the land borders open? And obviously you're looking forward to a good festive season. What is your take on that?
Maybe you can repeat it. Your connection was a bit weak on my side here.
Okay, should I repeat the question?
Yeah.
Okay, great. I would just like to hear your forecast in terms of incoming business. Are all the borders open? Are the airports operational? And are you seeing more international flights coming into Zimbabwe?
Okay, I know for this one, it's a wish for everyone to see more flights coming to Zimbabwe and more clients coming to Zimbabwe, more foreigner, more tourists coming to Zimbabwe. This will be a plus to Zimbabwe as well, because I know there's pandemic, and this pandemic has caused a lot of, as Mr. Manyera said, there's a lost business, lost happiness in families. So I think for us as a destination, this will be a good thing for us to see more people coming to Zimbabwe. And also, as they come to Zimbabwe, they will also see the actual things which are happening as far as our health protocols, COVID protocols, so that they can also go and sell these protocols to other countries, so that they see that in Zimbabwe, we are safe. All people will be safe when you travel to Zimbabwe. Thank you very much.
Lovely, lovely. I myself cannot wait to get back to Zimbabwe. The sooner the better. I'm just looking at some questions here from the audience, and I think, Mr. Nyamandi, this one is probably for you. Will fully vaccinated travelers be allowed to get into the country without a PCR test? Mr. Nyamandi.
Thank you. Presently, you know that we haven't reached the herd immunity that is required. There's 60% of the population being vaccinated. And I think if you also recall that just last week, we even stopped that requirement amongst civil servants. And presently, we are not looking much into vaccination, though it is one of the major methods of prevention. Presently, we are using the PCR certificate. That's our golden rule for someone to come in and get out of the country. Yes, I think at a later stage, depending on how the world looks at vaccination, I think we'll look at that. But already other countries are demanding that all visitors have vaccination certificate, but they are not removing the issue of PCR. So, and remember, vaccination doesn't prevent people from getting or contracting the disease. A vaccination only alleviates the severity of the disease. So we will focus more on the PCR, but our encouragement is that people should be vaccinated so that we reduce severity and the spread of the disease.
Thank you so much for that, Mr. Nyamandi. I trust that that answered the question to our viewers. Mrs. Ferenisi, let me jump back to you for a moment. There's so many positive things happening in Zimbabwe, and then including new tourism developments. What support is there from the ministry for new developments? Are we looking at special facilities to be put in place in future should a horrible thing like a COVID happen again? So what is in place for new developments, Mrs. Ferenisi, and then maybe Mr. Chikutsa, you can add to that once Mrs. Ferenisi gave us her point.
Sorry, Tess, I missed the first part of your question. Could you please repeat yourself?
Sure, I'm sorry about sound issues that side. We're just looking at new developments in Zimbabwe, new tourism developments. Are there any particular new policies in place for new developments from a tourism point of view?
Thank you very much. You are referring to policies on tourism investments. Did I
That's
get
right.
you right?
Yes.
Thank you very much. I think yesterday and today, those issues were being referred to. We do want investment in the tourism sector. It's a continuous exercise to try to improve the environment so that it is conducive to tourism investment. So we continue to look into all aspects and try to facilitate as much as we possibly can. Of course, we are not saying just come and invest in the tourism sector. You have to comply with what is already there. And if there should be new issues that need to be taken on board, definitely we will be working towards looking into those and reviewing what we currently have. But we are on an investment drive. for the tourism sector so that it grows and hopefully we quickly go back to our pre-COVID levels and even expand further. If you link them to the pandemics, a pandemic cannot be determined. It happens as and when it happens. And then we continue to look into that issue. Of course, the question of technology will need to be taken on board because one way or the other, we improve using technology to get to our desired point. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that. Mr. Chikudza, would you like to add anything to that?
Thank you, Tess. I know for that one, I think as Mr. Farad has just said, I think the investment is welcome. For now, we need that investment. Actually, with our mantra, we are saying we are open for business. So Zimbabwe is open. We need this investment so dearly so that at least our hospitality can also improve. And as you heard from Ms. Faranis, we are saying as Zimbabwe, let's say in rooms, we are still having a bit of shortage of rooms. So that investment will be a plus for us. So it's still needed for us to have this investment in Zimbabwe. Thank you very much.
Absolutely, absolutely. As we go running towards an end of the discussion, I'm just going to put a general question out there and then perhaps ask Mr. Nyamandi to start with answering the question, and then we'll go around and give everybody an opportunity for their parting shot. So looking at all of COVID, I've been hearing so many positive things from this panel. Ultimately, what have we learned from it? Mr. Nyamandi, may we start with you?
Thank you. Yes, I think the issue of integration, we should integrate our activities, especially in the prevention of COVID. We should talk to each other as sectors so that we ensure the success of our country. What we're saying is COVID impacts on all the sectors of the economy. And if we don't share information and implement the control measures together, that means the country cannot move forward. So we have to talk to each other and evaluate and involve the stakeholders and community along so that we progress as a country. We should also look at other countries, what they are doing so that we learn from experiences that other countries are going through. And we should also embrace the good that other countries are doing so that as a country, we bring success to the nation. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that. Mrs. Faranisi, may we move to you for your parting shot?
Yes, thank you very much, Tess. We are part of a region and we are also part of the continent and also part of the global village. Definitely, we need to be talking to each other, and cooperation and collaboration in various areas is a very important aspect. For us as a country, information dissemination and advertising of the destination are accessories to enticing tourists to come to our country. But what is more important is to make sure that we get them to visit on the basis of the adherence of implementation of health protocols and practice of sustainable and responsible tourism, among other issues. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Mr. Chikudza, let's move to you.
Thank you very much, Tess. I know mine will be just the same. What we are saying is for us to be successful, let's collaborate all sectors and also within the region, but at least we come together and then come up with one thing so that at least our tourism and hospitality can also improve. And besides that, the one thing which I have taken during this time, let's take safety of the clients, safety of the tourists who are coming to our destination first, so that at least when they come to our destination, they know that when we go to Zimbabwe, the destination is safe. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And then finally, Mr. Manyera. You're on mute.
Thank you so much, Tess and colleagues. I think my parting words will be to say we need to make sure that we, as the tourism and hospitality, we adopted the new normal. Some they call it new abnormal, even at a cost in order to survive COVID have actually taught us one thing, that we need oneness. As a sector, we are prepared to work with the government and all its forces, tertiary institutions, other sister associations, corporate destination management company, in bidding for meetings, conference, exhibitions, as well as incentive groups. I think as a country, we are being led by ZTA in the campaign to do with Meet in Zim. That is the MICE campaign, and it's a confidence builder on its own, because we are saying MICE we're actually doing mainly with the adults, and it's quite organized with a set date and set time and venue where people they can do with all things to do with the compliance, and we can actually be building confidence through the MICE, which is actually a bit organized, and the rest will come on forward as we see how we progress in terms of COVID-wise. So let's join our efforts in calling everyone to let's meet in Zim, a world of wonders, and I would say Zimbabwe for domestic tourism. Thank you.
Thank you. All so positive, and that's all music to my ears, to be honest. Meeting in Zim, what a pleasure. So just looking at all the discussions, the big things, the big takeaways for me here is collaboration. That came up in every conversation, and I agree, it is key. Looking at the SADC region, so we no longer have a Retosa, but should we not look at joining forces officially again, so that we can really, push that collaboration. Innovation has been amazing. It's you come up with a plan, you make things work. Sharing information, absolutely critical. And then learning from other countries, I think that is amazing. And I really think that other countries have got a lot to learn from Team Zimbabwe. And most of all, safety first. I think that is key, and that is what this whole conversation really highlighted, is that safety first is on top of everybody's minds. And I applaud Team Zimbabwe for the amazing work you've been doing. Hazel, before we close off, I just want to check if there are any questions from the audience on your side.
Thank you, Tess. Yes, I have comments and questions from Zimba Safaris. Many travelers have no fear that they will be sick or test positive upon arrival. This applies to the vaccinated as well as to the unvaccinated. After all travelers must show a negative test result before they leave the Netherlands or Belgium. A small number of travelers do worry about the safety in the aircraft, that they will become infected during their flight, because the tests can be taken up to 48 hours before departure, and they can still become infected in the meantime. The first question: many planes land simultaneously at the airport with maybe 300 passengers each on board. If all these people have to show their test certificate or maybe be tested on the spot, won't there be long lines, and do travelers not have to wait a very long time before they can leave the airport? The second question: a family or group arriving at the airport and one of them tests positive, or suppose that one person becomes sick during a stay in a lodge or hotel or in the bush, what happens then? Is that one person isolated? And what happens to the other members of the group that they are traveling with? Can the person who has tested positive choose where they want to go to, or are there specific hotels or quarantine centers that are designated by the government?
Thank you, Hazel. Perhaps, Mr. Nyamandi, can we address the second question to you with regard to a person who contracts COVID in a group while traveling?
Thank you. Thank you very much. Yes, I think these are examples of things that happen on a daily basis. And since the beginning of COVID, you will realize that we increased the personnel at our points of entry, as well as that include airports, international airports, and border ports. And what we are doing is we try as much as we can to reduce the waiting time. As soon as a plane arrives, it is cleared quickly. But remember, in the introductory question that you asked, I also said travelers should fill in a traveler surveillance form. And this has got personal information of where the travelers come from and where they are going. So in the event that one of the travelers tests positive, we will make follow-ups. We have got staff all over the country who will make, because this is an electronic form, and as soon as information is entered, it is then accessed by all our organs from the district level up to the national level. So we can make follow-ups as long as one tests positive. And we also use the method of the traveler locator, where we say you were sitting on seat number what. So we look at all the passengers that were sitting around the same, and it should be 2 seats ahead in front and 2 seats behind, and also on the side seats. And we monitor these, and it's easy because we use the same traveler locator form. And remember, airlines have got seats that are allocated to passengers, so it becomes very, very difficult to follow up. On the issue of quarantine, yes, once one is ill, we then isolate. We no longer quarantine. We've got treatment centers, and our site will kits for those that are seriously ill. Most of our hospitals have got COVID sections where our people are treated, or those that are also found to be positive are treated. But remember, it also depends on the severity. You can go and get treatment or heal at home just by observing and ensuring that you don't mix. And we have got staff that will monitor throughout that period. And in terms of quarantine, yes, where we feel that you can spread the disease, this is where we will say go to a designated government quarantine. And if you are a tourist or any traveler, remember, this is at your own cost, because the government will not commit, especially when you have got people coming from other countries, will not commit. So people will meet the cost. But we will ensure that if you have got a home, we can trace you. We put you under self-quarantine. But our employees, our officers will monitor on the progress. And our quarantine is 10 days. Then our isolation is 14 days. And we test during this period. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Nyamandi. Hazel, I just want to check. I think we are over time. Do we have a moment to just address the last question regarding congestion at the airport?
Let me give you 2 minutes to wrap up.
Thank you.
Then call it a day.
Fabulous. Mr. Chikutsa, would you like to address that question about the airport and possible congestion? Please unmute yourself, sir.
Thank you, Tess. I think for that one, Mr. Yamadi has already partially answered it as well. Also, already at the airports, they have got personnel who are dealing with all these issues. So I think that one will be solved, because it, as I said earlier, that collaboration is needed, whereby Minister of Health and the Airport Command of Zimbabwe will need to collaborate to see that at least our clients are not delayed as they arrive at the airport. So they need to come up with a mechanism whereby all clients, all tourists who are coming in Zimbabwe are not maybe delayed during the check-in processes at the airport. So the collaboration will be needed, but more manpower will be needed if, from the example given, that there will be more numbers. So it means more personnel will be needed for that process to be done efficiently without delaying the clients coming to Zimbabwe.
Thank you so much for that. I think it's very important tourist information. And all in all, definitely Zimbabwe is open for business. It is safe, and it's a magnificent country with magnificent people. With that, ladies and gentlemen, we'll wrap it up. And just a thank you to all our panelists. Thank you for taking the time. Mr. Nyamandi, Mr. Chikutsa, Mr. Maniera, and Mrs. Farinisi. Thank you so much, and have a lovely day.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Tess and colleagues. Thank you.
Colleagues, Tess.
Thank you very much, Tess, for the wonderful discussion. And you were discussing post-COVID assurance, Zimbabwe as a safe tourism destination. Please don't go away. We still have one more webinar session, and this one will start at exactly 1500 hours Central African time. We will be joined by the moderator, Tsitsi Munetsi from the Zimbabwe Tourism Authority, and she is discussing the future of tourism is going green. Stay with us.